Welcome to Dream Big with Big Dreamers, conversations for career growth, inspiration, and insight. It's time to dream big. Do you know anything about Colin Powell?
I know a little bit about Colin Powell. I mean, I know he was Secretary of State. I know he was the commander in the second Iraq War. And he's a very smart guy. Very impressive every time I've heard him interviewed. So, I mean, that's all I know about Colin Powell.
You know, with what I do, you know, with the LinkedIn profiles, we ask people for their favorite quotes. And Colin Powell is up there people love, this man has said some amazing, amazing things. One of his quotes is, "Leadership is solving problems. The day soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you have stopped leading them."
Interesting.
Isn't it? There is no end to the good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. That's also Colin Powell. If you're going to achieve excellence in big things, you develop the habit in little matters. Just really empowering, amazing things he's quoted and he said. And which brings me to our guest today, who is James George. And he has said that he finds amazing motivation and inspiration through Colin Powell. But James is a corporate black belt leader for a consumer goods company, leading highly capable teams and game-changing business transformation efforts, streamlining operations, improving productivity, and generating multi-million-dollar cost savings each quarter. But James is a retired major from the United States Army, where he led multiple high-profile initiatives involving thousands of people, millions of dollars in equipment, and hundreds of miles of land, both in the U.S. and abroad. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. How are you, Donna? Scott?
Doing good.
Good.
James, what did you want to be when you were a little boy? Like, did you say you wanted to be in the Army?
I did.
Was that what you were thinking back then?
Yeah. You know, so my dad, my dad and my uncles were all in Vietnam. And so after the war, they all, came back to Birmingham, Alabama in 1973, 74 from their tours. And I kind of fell in love with the stories that they told. And so for the rest of my life, I went on and became a Boy Scout, where I got my Eagle Scout. I was like the #1 cadet in ROTC. Then I went on to Georgia Military College, and then so on and so forth. So that was always a lifetime dream of mine, was to be in the military. And it was a pleasure and an honor to have served the way that I did. Yeah.
Now, you were in the Army from 1995 to 2015.
Yes.
And I have to say, like, what was it like transitioning out of that environment? Because I often talk with those who are transitioning out, and it's so very, very hard. It's a totally different environment. It's a different mindset. And, I wonder, did you struggle, or and I know that you're very focused on change management. Did the change management come from transitioning out, or was it vice versa?
Now the whole continuous improvement piece and change management piece came from being in the military. But to answer the question about the transition and was it tough for me, it was, because the military does a great job of bringing you in. Coaching and teaching you to stay in, to stay relevant, to accomplish the mission. We do a good job, basic training, AIT, and then a whole lot of other intermediate education that they do throughout your career. But what we just do not do a good job is when it's all said and done and it's time to go and you reach the end of your contract or you're ready to retire, there is no extensive program really to get you out of the military, to say, okay, we want to now deprogram this person so they can go out in the civilian world and do what they have to do. And this is very important, especially after coming out for 4 or 5 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Prior to 9/11, the transition was easier. But then come after 9/11, of course,
Yeah.
we've all been to combat several times. It's a lot more difficult and needs a lot more attention than it's getting now. So yes, it was tough for me to transition out of the military. Yeah.
You know, what you just said reminded me of something. My husband was in the Marines for years, and he had said to me, he was out maybe 3 or 4 years, and his sister said to him, "You're back. You're
Right.
finally back." He said it took him about 3 to 4 years to sort of lose that programming and, kind of become the person he was before. And so did it take you that amount of time?
Yeah, I've been out 5 years, and I still haven't all the way lost it because I did 20 years in 3 months, and so now I'm out 5 years, and it's still I still haven't transitioned completely out of it, but I have made some progress. So yeah, so I think I guess it all depends on how many years you were in. I spent almost half of my life either in the military or preparing to go. So you got to count that time too. So the speech, the way that we talk, the attitude, all this stuff was started the day I went to Georgia Military College, and it went all the way up until I retired. So I think it's going to take me a little longer to transition out of the military completely, if ever, because of the amount of time that I put in. So.
Yeah. What advice
What do you
would
think
you
is
give?
the number one? What do you think is the number one thing that you could learn that the private sector could learn from military life? Because it seems that the military, it's such a big, comprehensive organization that's so efficient and effective. I mean, what takeaways are there from military culture that the private sector could learn from?
Hey, Scott, that's a great question, and I have a good answer for you, too, because I've thought about this pretty extensively. The one thing that I think that if I could be the leader of the world for one day, I would say, hey, look at how we lead in the military. Understand what leadership really is. You see, leadership is, I have my own definition of leadership. Leadership is an art of influencing and directing people in such a way as to obtain their willing obedience, their confidence, their respect, and loyal cooperation in order to accomplish a mission. That right there is my definition of leadership, and the military uses many components of what I just said. So if there's anything I think the civilian world can learn from the military is what leadership is and how to lead. Because I see it all the time. People don't understand when it comes to leadership, you are responsible for what does and does not happen. That's the part of the civilian world. If my subordinate does not succeed, that's on me as a leader. If I do not meet my KPIs, that is on me as a leader, and I have to fix it, and you got to take ownership of it. That is some of the issues that I have seen in my 5 years being out of the military, is people understanding how to lead, when to lead, and how to coach, teach, and mentor as a leader.
What I was going to ask before was what advice, and does it touch upon what you said? Is it that ownership? I mean, but what advice would you give to those who are transitioning out and struggling, because there is such a disconnect between this leadership that you're referencing?
I think I think preparation. When you know that, hey, your time in the military is about to end, start preparing immediately. Don't wait until it's time to, you get your papers and saying you got 2 weeks left. Start preparing then, just as I did. I went and got my Lean Six Sigma black belt. I went to the PMP class. I made sure that my package was ready so I can transition over to the VA for my disability. Go ahead and start preparing yourself 6 months to a year out for that transition, so that when you come out and you get hit by the civilian world, you don't have to worry about those things, because those things are very complicated. You get out here and you're like, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And you're trying to figure that out. Then, oh, by the way, PTSD sneaks up on you. Your knees not feeling as good as they used to, and your ankles and your back. So now you got to go make VA appointments. All that stuff is cumbersome, and it takes time, and it causes stress and anxiety, and it leads to a whole bunch of other things. So the best advice that I can give folks that are in the military is a year out, 6 months out, start preparing for the transition, both academically, education-wise, as well as medically or your health-wise, and then your family. Get your family ready for the transition as well, because my son had a hard time with the transition just like I did. So those are the 3 things that I think, among 100 other things, that you should focus on if you are transitioning out of the military soon.
I'm curious, is it hard in the military if you're thinking, you're a soldier, but you're also a citizen, and what if you have questions about the mission? You think about like the second war in Iraq, I'm thinking in particular, was something that wasn't like widely popular in American culture, right? I'm wondering how you deal with questions you might have about the mission. I wonder how also that transfers into the private sector, when maybe you have questions about the company's mission, and how do you function in a team, in an organization, when you might be struggling with the direction the mission's going.
Right. In the military, when you sign your name on that dotted line, on that contract, and you take that oath of office, especially as an officer, enlisted as well, but as an officer, you sort of agree, hey, whatever missions that come down, from the high commanders, from the president, from the president of the United States, when it comes down, it becomes my mission. Once it goes through, the all the processes and that final order comes down, that becomes my mission, and I take it on as if I created it. And so that is my job that I've been tasked to do, and then I lead my soldiers through what we have to go through. In the civilian world, I ran into several situations where I didn't understand the mission or the purpose, and in my mind, I knew that it was not going to be successful. So with that being said, you have to really just say, okay, I'm going to do my part. And my command philosophy when I was a commander, I had this old saying, take care of your piece of the Army. But when I got out of the civilian world and realized that my ideas and my thoughts are not going to really have a significant effect on the strategic plan, the big strategic plan for the company I was working for, I just took care of my little piece of Coca-Cola, or my little piece of Spectrum Brands, or my little piece of HelloFresh. I just did my part, and hopefully the things that I accomplished at my part gives me a voice, so that I can say, hey, if we try it this way, guys, this may help us reach our goals. So that's what I found. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. That you're it's because there has to be kind of a transition, because a change of mindset, right? I mean, I'm wondering how you accomplish that change of mindset from the private sector to because that strikes me as not being easy, especially when it seems to me that one of the things the military strikes me as is incredibly efficient and effective,
yes.
Right? And so to transition into things that might be less efficient and effective, it's got to be a challenge to change your mindset.
Yes, it is. It is a challenge, but you have to understand too. In the military, even though we are a very efficient organization, it comes with a whole bunch of lessons learned. Every single mission that we go on, every single exercise that we do, every single training event that we take, we do something called an after-action review, AAR, and we go back and we take a look at all the mistakes that we made, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, and then we fix it immediately. So yes, and then the next time we don't make those same mistakes. Whereas in the civilian world, it's different. Same trials and tribulations and mistakes are made, none greater than the other. It's just that at the end of the day, from what I've seen in the civilian world, we don't really sit down and let's talk about the pros and cons to what we just did and how we can fix them so we won't make the same mistakes twice. That's what Lean Six Sigma or continuous improvement kind of came in for me. And that's sort of the gap that I'm seeing in the civilian world. Let's talk about our problems and let's lay out the pros and the cons, what happened, and let's try not to make the same mistake twice and continue to move forward. That's the big difference. And yes, it does take, it's frustrating. Very frustrating is that we keep making the same mistakes over and over again in the civilian world, and it is frustrating. It really is. Yeah.
How do you deal with the frustration? What do you do? How do you process it?
I just, I go home and I exercise, and I kind of try to take it off, get it off my mind, because it sticks because my job I take seriously, like I did in the military. It becomes a part of you. We take it very personal. It's professional and it's personal, and we don't like to fail. Failure is not an option for most folks that come out of the military, so we take that personal. So how I deal with it is I go back home, I try to relax, and I try to come up with courses of action that I can go back and do to try to mitigate the problem. And I just keep on pushing until I mitigate the problem. And sometimes they can be good, and sometimes they can be bad. I've had times where I just push so hard that it turns people off sometimes. Hey, this ain't the military, James. Calm down, pull back a little bit. And that right there is like, wow. So you don't want to get this right now. So you got to kind of pull back, make the adjustments, adapt, overcome, those Marine terms. But, that's what I had to do, adapt and overcome. And whatever they give me, I just kind of make the best of it. Yeah.
It must be hard to in some ways, form teams, knowing that the people that you're bringing on don't have that same background, that same commitment that you have. Are there certain things that you look for in people who weren't in the military? Are there certain values or questions that you ask to get to that core of the individual, so you're bringing someone on who has the right mindset?
They got this thing that we use in it's called coach, teach, and mentor. Every soldier that we bring into the military, straight out of the civilian world, has what you're saying. We don't know anything about them. We don't know, their background. We don't know whether they're morally straight, ethically straight. We have no clue on who that person is. But as a leader, it is my job to be able to take any person, do what I'm supposed to do, set the example, and coach, teach, and mentor to get people to my level. That's what we do as a team. And so that's, Michael Jordan. I mean, we can use Michael Jordan as an example. It took him a while to get to where he was with the Chicago Bulls, but he took a couple pay cuts. He changed position with the point guard, two guard. He changed up so many times so that the team could be effective. He played his role, and that's kind of how I look at it. When you bring in people that really don't know, they're not on my level yet, my job as a leader is to get them to my level. So it doesn't matter who you are. We're going to get you to my level through coaching, teaching, and mentoring.
Mentoring is something that's really close to your heart. I know that, since you've been out, as well as when you were in the military, you're always looking for people to help and coach, not even in the military, but just youth. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what drives you?
Yeah, so when I came out of, in the military, I think what drove me to come into the military was I always wanted to do something that was bigger than me. Always, whether it was Boy Scouts, or the military, always wanted to do something bigger than me. So when I came out of the military, what do you do to get something equal to or greater than what you did in the military? I mean, that was the biggest accomplishment of my life. So out here in the civilian world, what can I do to match that? And the only thing I can come up with at this time is that every person that I interact with for the rest of my life, I'm going to learn from them, and I hope they can learn from me. So it's always going to be about mentoring people to make them better, whether it's, kids that are in high school that want to go to college. It's guys and gals that are in the military currently, the members at church, whatever it may be. If you need me, I'm going to be there for you. And I've sort of considered that my new something bigger than me is mentoring anybody that I come in contact with. And also, the fascinating thing about this mentoring thing is I learn just as much as they learn from me. And it makes me a better person too. And I think that's that's the high that I get from it, is that it makes me a stronger person and a better leader every time I get into these relationships with people, whether it be a kid or it be an adult.
That's lovely. And you said you have a son?
I do. So I have a 21-year-old son, and I also have a 13-year-old son. Yep. And my 21-year-old son, I was a single parent, so I raised him, and so that was tough in itself too. So I've learned to really connect with young people these days a lot better than most, because my son, he likes rap music, he makes music, and so I'm on the other end of the house and I have to hear this music, and it's all this. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it ain't the same. It ain't the Will Smith and parents just want to, don't understand. It's not that kind of music. It's a whole different ball game. So I've learned to listen and adapt and respect, because back then when rap music was around, people, NWA and A Tribe Called Quest, everybody, that is the devil's music, but it was our music at the time. So I got much respect and love for the music of the day. So that's hard. That's something I'm learning to deal with too, with the 21-year-old. The 13-year-old, he's still kind of, PlayStation kind of kid and iPad. So we still growing with him.
Oh, I will tell you, my little 5 and 7-year-old boys, they're listening to the devil's music. The devil's music is Baby Shark over and over and over again.
I love Baby Shark. Yeah. Baby Shark, 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 baby shark, shark, shark. I love that song.
Oh, it was fun the first couple times. After 1,000 times, you start to hear the devil singing.
Yeah, can we do something different, And it's
some variety here would be nice.
Exactly, and but with the music today, all of it sounds the same, and so it's like I said, like can we do something different? Throw some R&B in there. Throw some I picked up on when I was in Nashville. I was stationed in Nashville. I fell in love with country music, and so let's do something different. Throw some variety in there sometimes, So yeah.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yes, it is. I agree.
What was your specialty in the military? What did you do?
What
did you do in the military?
First 10 years.
What was your specialty?
So in the first 10 years, I was I did infantry, which is the shoot, move, communicate type stuff. Go out, find the enemy, close in with, destroy, that stuff. And then the last 10 years was logistics. Every aspect of logistics, from food, bottled water, water purification, the transportation of that water, the bottling of that water, the making of that water, clothes, repair parts, anything dealing with logistics, I was involved in. And so that's pretty much what I did my 20 years. Yeah. Oh,
logistics must be fascinating.
Go ahead.
Logistics must be fascinating because because the military is kind of a self-enclosed animal, right? A self-enclosed organism. Right. Unlike lots of companies where you outsource things, you're basically doing everything internally, right? In the military.
Well, we used to, but we've learned that our footprint is not large enough to do some of the big missions that we have. So we now outsource just as civilian companies do. We bring in all type of third country nationals to drive trucks and to transport goods all over Afghanistan, Iraq, Germany. So yeah, we outsource now, the military does, because we just don't have the footprint or what we call the capability to do it internally like we used to. I don't even think back in the day when I first joined in 95, and even before that, we did it all internally. I think it was always outsourced. You all probably just wasn't familiar with that, because most of the things that we transport be civilians driving, but it's in a green truck. So you may think that a soldier or something driving it, but we've always outsourced for decades.
James, what does the future look like for you? What are you envisioning? What are you dreaming about? Where do you want to go?
Donna, I think right now, remember, I think I took a little journey down the entrepreneur side when I opened up that GNC that time. Me and a friend of mine, we ran 2 GNC stores in Colorado, and I kind of fell in love with the idea of entrepreneurship. So I think the first thing, of course, I want to open up my own business in the near future. I give myself 3 to 5 years. I'm looking at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or something of that sort. That's number one. Number two goes back to the doing something bigger than myself. And I got this thing that I want to close out my education at Harvard University. When it's all said and done, I want to be able to say, hey, I got a degree of some sort from Harvard University. I think that is the final chapter in the book. I came from the projects in Birmingham, Alabama, back in the 1970s, and then to be a graduate from Harvard University or Yale or some sort. I think that is a great book to write at the end of the day. So those are the 2 things that I'm working on in the next 3 to 5 years is to to see what I can do with this PhD. I transfer this thing over to Harvard University now that I'm on the East Coast, if possible, and then of course look at some entrepreneurship capability in the future. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Do you have? Is there a secret to success, or is there some keys to wisdom that you've given your sons, or you someone had given you that you feel that maybe our audience could find motivating or helpful as they move through their career?
Yeah, I tell my son, there's and it's very simple, and it makes sense, which is if you look good, meaning that you get up every single morning and you make your bed up at a minimum, and you go in and comb your hair and brush your teeth and go out and have a cup of coffee and run and exercise, that makes you look good. So the thought process is if you look good, then, and these are all assumptions, if you look good, then you will feel good. And then another assumption, if you feel good, that you will do good. So I think that if people just wake up in the morning and do what makes them feel good and makes them look good, I think you'll be ready to take on the world. And that's what I find working for myself. I'm 50 years old. I get up, I run, even though my knees and my back hurt. I run. I stay in school, and I just do my best at everything that I do, and that seems to be working for me right now. And it works for my son as well. I don't think he really was able to put the concept together until he had these dreadlocks, and he wouldn't comb them. He had picked up this weight, but when that guy started working out, he slimmed down. He cut the dreads out, got a neat cut that he gets every single week. He's walking around with his head high and his back straight, and he looks good, and he sounds good. So I haven't really put this to any kind of test. But I think if I were to give somebody some advice, take a look at that first. Look good, feel good, and you're probably going to do good. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree. I feel that a lot people are they look at the physicality, they look at a person, and people judge. And if you could at least I'm not even talking about attractive level or anything, but
right.
if you're fit, if you're healthy, if you're clean, if you have that smile on your face and you're approaching the world with enthusiasm and positivity,
yeah.
good things happen,
Yeah.
because that's the
Good
type of
things
person
happen.
other people are attracted to and want to work with.
It's contagious. It is contagious. I kind of everybody knows me as a comedian. I'm constantly always making jokes. I think I am serious probably 5% of the time. 95% of it is joking around all the time, and it's contagious. People love to come to work simply because we're going to laugh and have a good time and get the job done. So and all of that is because I feel good. I feel good about what I'm doing, helping people, taking care of myself. All those things are helping me out. So, like I said, the assumption that I make is that if people try to do it that way, that's simplicity. That is very simple. I think the world will be a better place, and people will feel a whole lot better about themselves. So.
Yeah. Well, James, thank you so much for your time today, for your wisdom, for your background, your history, all of the things that you've accomplished and you've done. And thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Donna, and thank you.
Thank you
for
so much.
all you've done. Yeah. I gotta give shouts out to Donna before we get out. I mean, Donna has done. I think I've sent about 10 or 15 veterans your way, and every single one of them have then turned around and sent others to you as well. And you have done great things for us veterans, and I'm pretty sure others. And I so appreciate you and your entire staff. You guys have. I now use words like branding. I never, branding. I thought was based off of a company or I never thought it could be a person. And your company has really made me understand that I have a brand. I am my own personal brand, and I want people to see my brand so they can hire me. And I got that from you. My resume reflects it. My LinkedIn site reflects it, and I thank you for that.
Oh, James, thank you. And we've loved working with you. We've loved working with all your referrals, and to me, it's to be able to help in just a small way, to present yourself, to present these people in a manner, knowing that it's going to change their lives, it's going to give them, a bigger trajectory, a longer career.
Right.
It's what keeps me moving forward. So thank you.